Phoenix's Rising podcast provides LGBTQ and POC with knowledge about and coaching through transitioning out of relationships with cluster B personalities, be they family, friends, or coworkers. On this podcast, I share my experiences and have interviews with authors, educators, and more whose works have helped me tremendously. The elements of transitioning into a new life is to reveal what's hurting, heal the pain through processing, grow in confidence and faith, and show others so they can live authentically without cluster Bs. Let's get ready to rise! Hey, Phoenix is rising. So, I want to talk about toxic relationships, the Wise Lesbian Guide to Getting Free from Crazy Making Relationships, and Getting On with Your Life by Amber Alt, PhD. So, hopefully, you've read the first, I think I did the introduction and then 2 chapters. So 2 or 3 chapters. I'm not keeping count, but I do know where my place was. Thanks to this sticky note. Everything's green screening out. Whew. All right. So let's talking today, and I'll just wrap it up. I'll read about 2 or 3 chapters. So we're on page 25 right now of the book, and I'm going to read until 40. So beyond lesbian drama, one of the hallmarks of personality disorders is that they create problems for people who have them, and for the people around them. Let me say that again. Sometimes in reading this, I'm realizing that she kind of talks like I write as well. So sometimes you may not catch it. So beyond lesbian drama is the title of this one. One of the hallmarks of personality disorders is that they create problems for the people who have them and for the people around them. Okay. Women who have entered into relationships with personality disordered girlfriends often find themselves experiencing life difficulties, yes, as a result of ongoing drama, stress, financial devastation, legal issues, and the wearing away of their self-esteem and self-confidence. Unlike mental illnesses such as depression, bipolar illnesses, generalized anxiety disorder, and schizophrenia, which often respond well to medication or therapy, personality disorders do not resolve with medication. I'm going to save it. To make matters worse, many personality disordered people avoid therapy, psychotherapy, especially once a clinician has diagnosed them properly. Personality disorders are often very difficult to treat because personalities, the stable patterns of how we respond to the world, are difficult to change. The personality disorders that are most toxic for relationships are those that clinicians identify as narcissistic, borderline, and antisocial personality disorders. Below, I give you some flavor of the kinds of difficulties women have faced in toxic relationships with disordered girlfriends. I provide some thumbnail sketches of cases. Details, of course, this is in parentheses, have been changed to protect the privacy of those involved, as a means of helping you determine whether these scenarios have some similarity to the situation you currently face, and as a means of demonstrating how devastating these relationships can become. So if you have been in, I don't care whether you're LGBTQIA, trans, all that. I don't care whether you're cis, I don't care. But because it doesn't matter if you have these personality disorders, if you have this cocktail, you got you know what I mean? You're with somebody with the cocktail. So you're, but this is a book that she's specialized, honed in for lesbians. But anyway, when Amy, a wealthy dentist, entered the home of Beth without Beth's knowledge, collected her credit card bills, and paid them off 3 weeks into their dating relationship, Beth, a nurse, interpreted the behavior as a sign of love and generosity. You want to talk about love bombing? My God. She neither called the police nor immediately ended the relationship. As a result, I'm going to wait until after. As a result, she signed up for several years of drama that culminated in isolation, physical abuse, and stress-related illness. Comment below. Kathy, a professor from Utah, left a lovely home and a secure teaching position at a prestigious college to take a temporary 1-year appointment at a third-tier school in Vermont because her partner, Doldra, insisted that she would leave Kathy if she wouldn't go. The house Kathy left behind didn't sell, and Kathy faced bankruptcy because she couldn't afford housing costs in 2 locations, especially while she was supporting Doldra. Kathy started the tenure track over, but was fired from her new university because Doldra's drama, I don't like that name, Doldra's drama at home interfered with her productivity. Doldra, who had achieved her goal of moving to Vermont, left Kathy when Kathy's job fell apart, claiming that Kathy's mental illness. This is Doldra telling Kathy that her mental illness had destroyed their relationship, despite all of Doldra's heroic attempts to save the relationship. Mind you, Kathy sacrificed her goals and her purpose for Doldra, but yet she has the mental illness and is the villain. Eleanor, a South Carolinian woman on the rebound from a decade-long relationship, put up a Match.com ad a month after her ex-partner moved out. When Frida, an accountant from Portland, Oregon, these names, boy. When Frida, an accountant from Portland, Oregon, answered and soon claimed to be head over heels for Eleanor, Eleanor agreed to Frida's proposal to sell her own house and leave her job to relocate to South Carolina. 3 months after they began to live together, Eleanor realized that Frida had been neither employed nor owned a home, was not actively looking for work in South Carolina, was a nightmare to live with, and would be very difficult to extricate from her life. Are any of you guys relating to these examples, these real life situations in your own life? Comment below. Gina, a retiree enjoying the good life. And see, and here's the thing, because these are right now, it seems as if we're talking about women, lesbians who are middle-aged, to older. So I'm thinking 40s up. This happens with your 15 to 30-year-olds too. It happens. Please believe me, it happens. Gina, a retiree enjoying the good life in Florida, allowed Haley, a much younger, charmingly toxic girlfriend, to move in with her despite friends' warnings. Within months, Haley quit her job and began draining Gina's retirement funds. Soon, Gina was broke. She had to move from enjoying her retirement in sunny Florida to depending on relatives in snowy Wisconsin, where she sought refuge in her sister's basement. She allowed Haley, who claimed to have nowhere else to go, to come with her. Inez, a Wisconsin woman, was shocked to discover that Joyce, whom she had been dating for a year, was still in a partnership with Chris. Inez was stalked by Chris, who believed that Inez was having an affair with Joyce. Joyce successfully had convinced both parties for months that each was her one and only, telling each that the other wouldn't leave her alone, provoking fights with one in order to create space to spend time with the other, and using each for childcare for her kids, whom she shuttled between Chris and Inez in order to avoid her own childcare responsibilities. Wow, sounds so familiar. Lori from Indiana mistook stalking for attentive devotion. She allowed Mina a disordered partner to move in with her. Lori suffered property destruction, police involvement, social embarrassment, and legal expenses when she tried to end the relationship. Pardon me. Years later, Mina continued to keep track of Lori's activities and attempted to obstruct any new romance from a distance. Comment below. Pat, an Ohioan, ended her relationship with her long-term stable girlfriend. These names are getting ridiculous. You guys, okay. Querisha. Amber, you got some splaining to do with that one right there. I'm going to say it again. Pat, an Ohioan, ended her relationship with her long-term stable girlfriend, Querisha, when a personality disordered medical school's classmate, Raleigh, seduced her with promises of marriage and children, future faking. Pat was stunned when Raleigh then dumped her. Raleigh spent the next 2 years bouncing back and forth between Pat and another woman. She ultimately married a man and continued to have affairs. My God. I'm going to wait until this chapter is over. But I mean, it's so, because these people, it's like they do come in to literally destroy you. And they know how to bait you. And it's really depressing though. You know, like every story that she has recited here, the ambiguity, like this, if you take my course, we're going to go through these things. We're going to talk about the characteristics and the tactics of that cluster B personality disordered demons use. And you know, you hear over and over and over again that these guys do not have feeling. And they don't have feeling. If you've watched Westworld, that was my favorite show. I mean, I would like to see the end of it. I don't know if that season's up, but anyway, that was my favorite. So here are robots. And we all know that, you know, now these robots can have babies. From a toad's DNA in Africa, they can now have produced babies. So is it too far? You know, because it's kind of funny. If you've ever watched The Matrix, I'm a Generation X kid. So if you've ever watched The Matrix, it was the machines were taking over. And we have these cluster B personalities who mimic, and the flying monkeys who help them, i.e. the people who are creating them and making a way for them, mind screwing people to think that robots having babies is natural, you know, eating meat that's been grown in a lab that's not real, authentic, organic meat is meat. That's Echo and the flying monkeys. Helping narcissists, helping the cluster B cocktail demons. So it's not, you know what I mean? So when we say, when those are the coaches and the psychologists, you know, when we say, hey, these guys are never going to love you. They can't, they can mimic. And it's, you know, it's because they don't have empathy, that they don't have true feeling. They have feeling as in, I am pre-programmed to hit a target. If I don't destroy that target, if through using the process that's been delegated to me, if I don't destroy that target, then I don't get that satisfaction. I don't get fed. That's my fuel. So that's their sense of agency. It's not marrying you. But they know once they've collected the data on you, they got your personality, they've profiled you. They're a profiler. So they know exactly how to get you. This one woman's like, oh, she promised her marriage and a family, and then ended up leaving her and eventually marrying a man. Or well there's one, the Ohio, you know, all these things I have either experienced or have, or, you know, other people, clients tell me, or had people attempt on me. You know what I mean? Like I said, cluster Bs will still come after you, but because they've signed you up. So it's not that I still don't desire to have a life partner and to have that family network, but I'm not talking to a cluster B about it. I'm not talking to anybody about it, right? But if they're on your social media profile or whatever, and they're gathering whatever you're saying, okay? So yeah, this is very serious because people don't understand. You don't expect this type of thing to happen in your life. You don't expect somebody to be able, I'm trying to see what my thing is. You don't expect somebody to come in your life solely to cause you trauma and then sit and watch how you react to the trauma that you've just been put through and get satisfaction out of that. We don't think about that, but once we're in it, we start thinking about it now, because that does catch us all completely, totally, utterly off guard, you know. And the fact that she said that this person was I think it was the last one that I read, or no, yeah, the second to the last. Lori from Indiana mistook stalking for attentive devotion. She allowed Mina, a disordered partner, to move in with her. Lori suffered property destruction, police involvement, social embarrassment, and legal expenses when she tried to end the relationship. Years later, Mina continued to keep track of Lori's activities and attempted to obstruct any new romance. That's what I have had. Now, as you guys have told, and I'm not trying to put myself into this, but I've had that experience, but it was with somebody that I did not have any intention of dating, never dated, never showed. The person was not attractive. The person was absolutely god awful ugly. God awful ugly. If they, you know what I'm saying? So spiritually and physically, there would be no way. No way. But this person who was already attached, like we just heard, you know what I mean? I've read off these stories to you. This triangulation. And I don't think that really, the more that I read about this, about other people's stories, the more that I listen to other people's stories, there's some questions that I have, you know? But the fact that this woman that I've been dealing with has stalked me and done witchcraft on me and sent flying monkeys after me to sabotage my job, sabotage me from talking to anybody. Like, I'm like, okay, so how would you know that I'm talking to anybody? Right? Because they tap in. And spiritually, when you purge them, they're still coming back. You know, that's it. That's it. You just got to keep purging them. Because when these people get you, because this person wasn't able to get me. You know, I wasn't one of those type of people that you could control. You're not going to exploit my vulnerabilities, you know, my situation, my vulnerable situation. Everybody goes through vulnerable situations. Doesn't mean that they deserve to be exploited, whether they've made a mistake or not. You know, if I turn left and I turn right and I crash into something, okay, I deserve still sympathy. I don't deserve to be, you know, exploited and, you know, traumatized physically, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. Nobody deserves to be in a cluster B personality relationship. Nobody deserves to be eviscerated by a covert narcissist or an overt narcissist or a psychopath or a sociopath, the borderline personality and the histrionic or anything flipping in between. Nobody deserves this. Nobody. So yeah, I mean, you know, the person stalked has been stalking me, and I had another one that stalked, just, you know, where they thought, oh, it's okay because you rejected me. And the thing of it is that you never know, right? Like, but at least I had the tools to deal with the second one, you know, because I was like, okay, and she literally came from the same template as the first. Same template. Both of them were married, but they expected, and I think it was race. These were Hispanic women, and racially, lay down. Racially, they did not see me as being valuable because they only saw me as being Black, and I'm mixed race. So they only saw me as being Black. They saw the color of my skin and thought, no, she's expendable. I know that I'm not. So it also reminds me, okay, just because you're dating other people of color doesn't mean that they can't have colonial perspectives, belief systems that they hide secretly within them. Like this person really just, she had no boundaries. She felt that if you looked at her, you were attracted to her, and that's the arrogance that comes with, I believe, Latino, Hispanic, Mexican culture. Say what you want, put it in the comments. But I've lived here for 10 years and I've seen a lot of these cluster B personalities in these cultures. And like, if I look at you and if I show interest in you, I'm going to stalk you for the rest of your life because you're my property now. Now, I don't understand that, but then, they'll be marching for rights or whatever. And actually you don't see these guys marching for a lot of rights because they don't, in my opinion, everything's cool, copacetic. No, the cops aren't killing them, for sport. So yeah, race can play, and we saw with the woman who was dating a white male, and he was calling her all sorts of N-words and whatnot and beating her. And it was unfortunate. And this was on Facebook. I wasn't even on TikTok or anything else like that. And this was on Facebook, and all the Black people who were responding was like, well, see, that's why you shouldn't have been with a white man and da 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 da. No, this guy was batshit crazy. Doesn't mean that all white men would be like that, but he gravitated towards her and could have been race specific because he felt that he could control her. The two Latinos, Latinas, Hispanics, whatever that were dealing, that had targeted me. And I mean, like literally the second one had been watching me because I'd been coming back and forth to the hotel, taking a break from living in the van, and, just wanting to shower and to really rest, have some better security. And so she had been watching me from then. She knew about me from then because I've been gang stalked for 10 years. And I've been gang stalked mostly by the Hispanic culture here, because of my views and not siding with, just because I'm a Black person and I've dealt with oppression and been traumatized by, racism here in America, that I should join the intersectionality bandwagon and just go ahead and co-sign everybody's stuff. But if you are Hispanic and you are more in touch with your colonial roots than your African roots, then, I have no sympathy for you and I don't make any apologies for it. Nobody has to. Nobody has to. You can't play the master and the victim at the same time. You can speak it, but it's not, you'll know them by their fruits. And I've known them by their fruits. I'm sorry, but when you're paying, people to harass a business owner because you want to take over that territory, and then you put your colors on it like they did with this hotel, So, and like I said, when I rejected this person and just, was like, you're too much drama. My spirit guides, everybody's telling me, leave you the hell alone. And there was no conversation anyways, not that I was working and setting up my businesses. So I really didn't care. But, then the race thing came in. It's like, well, how dare you, try and tell me that you're better than me or something like that, and colorism is very big in Latin, Hispanic, whatever cultures. So anyway, let me go ahead and start reading this other part. So yielding to pressure to marry as an antidote to relationship struggles, Kate, a Nebraska woman, went to Canada with her disordered girlfriend, Tanya, got married, and dealt with complicated legal consequences as a result. When it was clear that the structure of marriage did not stabilize the relationship, Kate sought a divorce, only to discover that she would need to move to a state where same-sex marriage is legal or live in Canada for a year to become legally free. Wow. Kate and Tanya had purchased property together, and because Kate did not have access to divorce, she could not sell the house and move on without her co-owner's permission. Tanya, of course, refused to agree to sell their home, making exiting very difficult for Kate. Ursula, a commercial cruise line captain based on the West Coast, allowed Victoria, her charming new girlfriend from New Zealand, unlimited access to her bank accounts and credit cards. And while she was at sea for 3 months, she came home to find her accounts down by $500,000. A New York social worker, Willie, spent $20,000 on a honeymoon in Paris after participating in a commitment ceremony because that was the dream of her girlfriend, Zawin. A month after the honeymoon, she divorced Zawin and she discovered, sorry, I was trying to get to the quick of it. She discovered Zawin had been cheating on her throughout their relationship. This is kind of hard to read, you know what I mean? Because it's like I'm feeling that pain, you know? From a lot of, I mean, this is like so many stories that I have listened to, and it's painful, you know, it's painful to see the look on people's faces when they've lost everything, you know, because it's like we're meant to cohabitate with one another, right? And so a lot of people's like, well, how do I protect myself? January 11th, you can register for this 8-week course that I have, the 4 steps to breaking free of, or 4 steps to your authentic self and breaking free of cluster B personalities. And so in there, we go through weekly. The first part is describing what cluster B personalities disorders are, their characteristics and their tactics. It may be redundant, but I am giving you real world examples from what I went through as a lesbian, as a Blackfeet and Scottish Irish person of color, as somebody who was homeless, and as somebody who grew up with 2 narcissistic parents at different times. I didn't grow up with both of them, but you know what I mean? At different times. So I can describe, you know, verbatim. Plus I can understand where you're coming from. I don't need to transfer my life story to you, but I want to hear your life story. So it's all about guiding you through and helping you get to your solutions, to see yourself clearly as it pertains to you and your life path on your spiritual journey in your purpose. And then the second part, of course, is the 4 steps, is breaking free of cluster Bs. And then the 4th, so we're going to learn how to do that. Breaking free of them is by recognizing them. That's the first part. The second part of breaking free of them is to break free of the chains, the trauma bonds, and other wounds and toxic patterns of survival that you've acquired to when being in those relationships. So when you are living from your authenticity, the template no longer works. We've set, this is the second video that I've read out of here. And it's the same template. If you guys are following me on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, I'm sharing my story, right? I'm sharing my story. Now I know people say, oh, you know, you got to get the people in touch with you and stuff like that. It's like, I don't mind sharing my story, but I'm a solution-oriented person. Like I can only tell you so much, you know what I mean? Like there's times if there's another layer of healing that I personally will go through, I will share it with you guys, but I'm not going to take it over. It's about getting you to where you need to be so that you can help somebody else by being in your purpose. So that's an 8-week course that's coming up. After each module, there's a quiz, and then there's a workbook that you download. You guys also have access to 60-minute sessions if you want to sign up for that throughout the course, throughout the 8 weeks. And it's normally $90 a 60-minute session. And you guys are getting this for free because you're taking the course. And the course right now is 25% off for the new year. So that means it went down from $200 to $150. Doesn't get any better than that. And I'm looking for 10 people. So that way I can just keep it small so I can focus on y'all, right? All right, so let's go. So read this again. Yielding to pressure, this is page 28 of getting free, the Wise Lesbian Guide to Getting Free from Crazy Making Relationships and Getting On with Your Life by Amber Alt, PhD. And this is, again, page 28. Yielding to pressure to marry as an antidote to relationship struggles. Kate, a Nebraska woman, went to Canada with her disordered girlfriend, Tanya, got married, and dealt with complicated legal consequences as a result. When it was clear that the structure of marriage did not stabilize the relationship, Kate sought a divorce, only to discover that she would need to move to a state where same-sex marriage is legal or live in Canada for a year to become legally free. Kate and Tanya had purchased property together, and because Kate did not have access to divorce, she could not sell the house and move on without her co-owner's permission. Tanya, of course, refused to agree to sell their home, making exiting very difficult for Kate. Ursula, a commercial cruise line captain based on the West Coast, allowed Victoria, her charming new girlfriend from New Zealand, unlimited access to her bank accounts and credit cards while she was at sea for 3 months. She came home to find her accounts down by $500,000. A New York social worker, that's called a succubus. A New York social worker, Willie, spent $20,000 on a honeymoon to Paris after participating in a commitment ceremony because that was the dream of her girlfriend, Zhao Wen. A month late after the honeymoon, she discovered Zhao Wen had been cheating on her throughout their relationship. Yavani, a Coloradan, made a withdrawal from a retirement account to pay living expenses for her girlfriend after Zoe expressed desperation about not making enough money at her hourly wage job to take care of the basics. Yavani discovered subsequently that Zoe had been buying art books, iDevices, alcohol, and sex toys with money she pretended not to have, and Yavani's retirement account was subsidizing her indulgences. A Georgia massage therapist, Addie, allowed her disordered girlfriend, Beth, to move into her home without paying expenses, even though they had been having ongoing conflict. Addie was concerned about Beth's housing and financial situation and wanted to save her from living in her car, which Beth frequently mentioned while she got back on her feet. Once Beth moved in, Addie discovered that Beth would destroy the house if confronted on any issues. Temper tantrum. Essentially making Addie a hostage in her own home. I have a channel called Blue Phoenix Rising Media LLC. Go check that out. I tell you, share my, just give you guys the details of, how I became homeless. And at the time I did it, I just needed to get it out, but we're going to revamp that soon, gratefully. Revamping, because it's not my best work. So it was just something to help me process and get the crazies out, literally. So a Montana State Park employee, Callie, stopped taking antidepressant medications because her disordered girlfriend, Dee, didn't believe in them. Comment in it, because what this, reading all of this, what this is showing me, see, because when you are living from your authentic self and you know your purpose and you are not relying on somebody liking you, somebody agreeing with you, somebody even accepting you, when you have a relationship with the Most High, the universe, your guides and your angels, there is nobody. It doesn't mean that you're not going to yearn to mate or share something with somebody. The thing that I knew a long time ago, which is why, I've been single for a long time, since mid-20s. And I would dip out of celibacy every once in a while, but I just found that it's too tragic, because while you're in quiet time, while you're in your own space, you're growing, you're healing, all your prana, you're leveling up, right? And so when people meet you, they don't want you, they want the energy. And when you don't give it to them, they will throw a temper tantrum. Because, every time I notice, it's like, okay, this is a one-sided relationship. You want to be with somebody who compliments you, where when you come into each other's lives, you add something to what is already there. You help to solidify, strengthen your relationship, the foundation. You know, I desire to have a business partner. I mean, I'm still a filmmaker, you know, I desire to have somebody who is a business partner, somebody that I can trust. I mean, you know, you have your own stuff, and I've never met a, I would be cool with just living by myself. I like my own space so much that it would be unnerving, you know, like we would have to do the separate house thing, separate bank accounts, you know, if we could partner, subcontract out to each other or whatever, but you know, the business is the entity. You're not going to take from me, right? Um, anyway, that's it. I mean, you know, you just learn in it because it's so hard when you got people, especially other women who have been gliding through off of creating pain in other people. Now, these are supposed to be the nurturers, the you know, and they're not, you know, and that's what throws a lot of people off. It's like, well, I am, but not everybody's like you, though. Understand that and accept it. Understand and accept that what you would do for somebody else would not be done for you, especially because you would do it for somebody else. You know, you may somebody who may meet people who meet you, who will do a quarter of what you do, 1/32 of what you do, but never, because most of us go 200 and something percent because it's like we know what it's like to be isolated, alone, afraid, da 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 da. People don't care about that. You know, people don't care. A Montana State Park employee, Callie, stopped taking her taking antidepressant medications because her disordered girlfriend, D, didn't believe in them. And we just got through reading that this is a personality disorder. It's not a mental disorder, right? So there's no chemical that you need to enhance or help the brain to produce more of when you just have your character disordered. You have no integrity, you have no empathy, you have no boundaries. That's in your character, which means that you're just a demon that looks like the people that you're preying on. So D didn't believe in medication. So Callie returned to drinking after 10 years of sobriety because her D did believe in drinking. So, God, a Montana State Park, the way that she writes is a bit tongue-tying. A Montana State Park employee, Callie, stopped taking antidepressant medications because her disordered girlfriend, D, didn't believe in them. Callie returned to drinking and after 10 years of sobriety because her D did not believe in drinking or did believe in drinking. Now, see, I'm flipping it because that's how my mind would work. I mean, like you drinking all the time, but not drinking to try and self-medicate, you know? As a result, Callie experienced a resurgence of depressive symptoms and a reduction in her capacity to cope, especially in the face of Dee's unending drama. Eddie, an Ohio factory worker, lost many hours of her life trying to figure out what she could do to make her relationship with Fiona work. She married Fiona and adopted children with her, thinking this would improve things. Ultimately, Eddie needed to remove the children from the home for their psychological and personal safety and dealt with years of legal, emotional, and financial hassle related to child custody. Do you see yourself or someone you love in some of these scenarios? Comment below. Reading these examples, it is hard not to wonder how so many smart and decent women could allow themselves to stay in relationships that were clearly exploitive, painful, and damaging. Looking at them from the outside, it is also hard not to wonder if the person being victimized also isn't disordered. Although this question runs the risk of victim blaming that lets the narcissist, sociopathic, and borderline disordered girlfriend off the hook. Taken as a whole, these cases may tempt you to wonder whether such toxic whether such toxic relationships are more common than uncommon among women in same-sex relationships. These are all good questions, although there is no evidence that personality disorders are more common among lesbians than other women than among women in the general population. I am going to argue that women in queer relationships may be vulnerable to may be vulnerable to partnering with people with personality disorders for a host of social reasons. I am also going to argue that we need to integrate I think that's spelled wrong. Integrate understandings, integrate. Oh, integrate. Okay. I pronounced it wrong. Understandings of personality disordered behaviors with our understandings of sexism and heterosexism. C. Coleman, 1994. So I don't know. To develop a clear interpretation of why so many women have experienced crazy making levels of emotional toxicity from their partners and why they have overstayed in such unhealthy relationships. Finally, I will argue that if you are presently in this kind of relationship, there is plenty of hope for you to end it, recover, and move on into a life that is free of toxic relationships, toxic girlfriends, and toxic waste that they inevitably produce. A happy and peaceful place with the prospect of mutually rewarding love with a healthy and kind woman does await on the other side of your toxic relationship. In order to get there, let's take this one step at a time. First, let's talk for a minute about ways of interpreting relationship craziness. Whew. It's exhausting reading some of this stuff. You may not currently think of the volatility in your relationship in terms of domestic violence or even in terms of abuse. Although your girlfriend may behave in unpredictable, volatile ways, or may lie to you, or may take advantage of your financial generosity, you may not be comfortable with the idea that this is abusive. After all, who wants to see herself as an abused woman? If your girlfriend has never been physically aggressive towards you, this is the covert narcissist she's describing. If your girlfriend has never been physically aggressive towards you, her behavior may not conform to your idea of how abusive lovers behave. In this book, we'll rethink this in an effort to help you interpret what is happening more clearly. And yeah, well, even the most aggressive, when they start to be aggressive later on, because they're frustrated, especially when you start to wake up and you start to use the tools that I teach in my online course. When you start to use those tools, they become irate. That's why you have to have an exit plan, and you have to make sure that you know how to gray rock. Gray rocking is little to no response because they have to rile you up to have an excuse to accuse you of being in a low vibration that they've put you in. So everybody else can say, see, they can point to everybody and say, see, look how crazy she is. Look, you know? So anyway, the stereotype of domestic violence, also called intimate partner violence, is certainly heterosexual from a mainstream, and this is what I said at the first video, I believe. From a mainstream feminist perspective, we attribute the dynamics of such relationships to men's cultural dominance over women. It is indisputable that we live in a male-dominated society, and indisputable that the systems of that society have protected men who abuse women and children. Nonetheless, there is so much variation in disordered relationships that male dominance alone doesn't completely explain it. Most men in heterosexual partnerships are not abusive. And some women in heterosexual relationships abuse their male partners. Yes, they do. What explains the existence of peaceful heterosexual men and straight women who abuse their husbands? So, what explains the existence of peaceful heterosexual men and straight women who abuse their husbands? What explains abuse in lesbian relationships? So, psychology professor Dr. Eileen Kashak writes, well-accepted analysis of violence based in male privilege and power may seem irrelevant or inapplicable to lesbians, yet, and it's not, yet, while neither partner in a lesbian relationship enjoys male privilege and power, we all live in a society that promotes hierarchy, power differential, inequality, and yes, violence, because that's power. And it's the energy of masculinity has nothing to do with gender. It has something, it's tipping, like you can have femininity and you can be overly nurturing to the point of smothering, right? It's an energy. It's not a gender. It's not biology. These are endemic to patriarchy. Yeah, these are endemic to patriarchy, and why should they not find their way into relationships lived in this milieu? Additionally, lesbian relationships are directly influenced by other societal power and inequalities that impact all citizens, including sexism and those based in class, race, ethnic, and economic inequality, as well as differences in interpersonal power. And she has in parentheses 2001, so that's must have been written by her. Okay, we live in and that says a lot, because that's what I said at the beginning, which is why I like this book, that the fact that she brought this book on, or that she wrote this book. I get tired of this. Come on, there we go. Because it is. And when I was growing up a Generation Xer, like I shared in the beginning, I was to take on the role, because I was dating women who were bisexual, but were tired of men. So they thought that they were going to be treated better by women. But they wanted to recreate that dynamic because that's all that they knew. Not saying that they weren't weren't actually bisexual or weren't actually lesbians who were hiding their sexual orientation out of fear for whatever reason, which is, we understand that, right? But you're trying to recreate what is not there. So when I was growing, and this is what I never liked, it's like, I am evolving. I have a sensitive side to me. It's like these no touch me studs. I don't understand that. But you say you no touch me, but then later on this stud gets married to a male, a cisgender man. So, whatever. Another topic, another book to read. We live in a cultural environment that doesn't promote healthy relationships, and they don't. They promote drama. And lesbians bear an additional burden of stress based on heterosexism and homophobia. Okay, legal and personal discrimination and anti-gay and lesbian violence. Still, many women in same-sex relationships, like many men and women in heterosexual relationships, do not engage in abusive behavior. Indeed, many are committed to promoting peace and happiness in our households and partnerships. So in addition to the toxic cultural environment in which our relationships take place, what might further help us understand the characteristics of those who abuse their partners? Psychologist and psychotherapist Dr. Valerie Coleman proposed, based on both research and clinical experience, that many women in same-sex relationships who engage in physical or emotional abuse of their partners, like many men with this problem, frequently can be described as meeting the psychological criteria for personality disorders. She emphasized 3 personality disorders as being especially likely to appear in troubled lesbian relationships: narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. People with antisocial personality disorder are popularly called psychopaths or sociopaths. The clinical experience and research supports this understanding as a useful way of thinking about the personality characteristics that prove toxic in same-sex relationships among women. This line of thinking doesn't explicitly explain what causes personality disorders, which may well be linked to all the forms of oppression that characterize life in capitalist male-dominated societies. But it does give us a way to see more clearly the patterns of trouble in particular relationships. As Dr. Coleman notes, historically, many theorists and persons working in the field of domestic violence have been hesitant to acknowledge individual variables as a significant component in battering, for fear that such a perspective would distract from important socio-political factors and serve as an excuse for violent behavior. Rather than negating the importance of social influence, the consideration of individual factors as mediating variables in domestic violence can complement sociological and socio-political perspectives. In parentheses, 1994. Theory works at broad levels of analysis to explain toxic patterns in relationships, but your relationship takes place in your living room, your bedroom, and your psyche, one day at a time. The theories of domestic violence that you know to apply to straight relationships may not allow you to code the suffering you are experiencing in your relationship in terms of battering or domestic violence. Yet you know that something in your relationship is very, very wrong. Physical battering is not the only hallmark of toxic relationships. If your girlfriend gives strong evidence of the traits of narcissistic, borderline, or antisocial personality disorder, understanding these disorders will give you new ways to understand what is happening in your relationship and insight on how to move forward from your own sanity and safety. Mouthful. And I'm going to keep reading. So the next, I'm going to pause it right here, though. I'm going to pause, go on a little bit of a break, and I'll pause right now. All right, Phoenixes. Let me see if my mic is on. Boom. Hello. Okay. Yep. All right. So after that little break, I'm going to come back, and the next subsection or subtitle is The Real Lavender Menace, Toxic Girlfriends. Are lesbians especially vulnerable to crazy relationships? It seemed like it to me, which is why I tapped out early. Although it's the saddest thing. Can't help but think of women. I mean, and I dated older. That tells you a lot too. I dated older. Which is why a lot of women will do what is acceptable, even though they are lesbian. They will do what's, because it's more acceptable to be heterosexual than it is to be lesbian, because that means that you may not, they assume that you're not going to procreate. They assume that, you're going to try and turn everybody out. There are lesbians who turn women out. They sure do. That's their goal, but it was, when you desire emotional support or some type of connection with somebody, especially when you're young, I remember going through that confusion because not a lot of people, but especially people in the Black community, Black men, always wanted me to be bisexual. And I've already, talked about that. And then with the religion, not a spirituality, but the religion, always, the preacher he was on the council for gay stuff that when I was growing up. And as soon as he saw, it was a white lesbian who came into the church. God is a spirit. He is not flesh and blood, so he's not going to lie to you. He has no, you know what I mean? Because we in here, we're trying to survive in this ship. We're trying to survive. So God, the Most High, you know, these beings that are greater than ourselves, that created all this, they have no need to prove anything with their looks or anything else like that. So, you know, and it's things that sometimes when you have this sense of knowing when you're growing up, but you can't articulate it because you're too small. Because if you say anything, people are going to beat you. You know, they beat you, they punish you because somebody punished them. And it's that same thing with, you know, that coercive control, the using violence, controlling people using violence, you know, but yet you'll engage in pedophilia while talking against people loving one another. And then they wonder why, you know, these relationships, because the, you know, the lesbian and gay relationships, like in the gays, we would say that for gay men, it's easier for them to have relationships because they're not, you know what I mean? It's like, who doesn't want to have sex? So, I mean, because when growing up, all I saw was them just having sex, having sex, having sex, having sex. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to marry you or whatever. You know, it's like, okay, who can I get tonight? And they would all kick it together still. You know what I mean? Like something really drastic had to have happened in order for them not to be a part of the group. Also, when I was living in Spokane, Washington, it was the flavor of the month, right? So you had the Jewish gays along with the Asian gays who were seen to dictate like what the flavor of the month was going to be. Sometimes it was black, sometimes it could have been Puerto Rican, you know, sometimes it you know, whatever. It was just, we weren't, I mean, actually, this was a discussion by gay males. So, you know, you still had that heterosexist internalized homophobia in the Jewish and you know, white gay male community. And this was, you know, like I said, I'm Generation X. So you still had that. So I was just wondering, I don't like, get bored easy, whatever. I would go out, but it was not fulfilling for me because my whole purpose was meeting somebody was to do something constructive. What are we doing? I can sit and drink at home. I don't need to be around other people and listen to their conversations. You know, I can go and read a book. I can watch a TV show. I can listen to music and chill out and write poetry, you know, and sip my beer, sip my wine or whatever. I didn't, you know what I mean? So for me, it lost, but those were the type of conversations. And you realized, you know, like, remember when there was this trend, God, was it in 2000, between 2090 or no, 1990 and 2000? Prosperity, leave her alone. You were just cutting up. Sorry. She's messing with the grandbaby, and the grandbaby don't want to mess with her. Knock it off. You guys should see her face. So yeah, they were dictating through patriarchy. Didn't matter that they were same-sex loving men. It meant that they were men. You know, so people say, well, you know, you're black people, you're always talking about your blackness and I saw my gayness, but no, you're always exerting your whiteness. Whether you're gay, straight, or trans, you're always exerting your whiteness. You want people to know that you're white because therein lies your privilege. Just because you're not speaking white supremacist speech doesn't mean that you're not exuding it. You're not, you know, you're not radiating it. You're not giving off that, you know, psychopath Ku Klux vibe. That's what I grew up with. So, you know what I mean? This one thing where people are talking about, oh, well, you know, I'm gay and this, I'm homophobic. I've experienced a lot of homophobia and all this other stuff. I never experienced that. That always came last to my gender and to my color. Always came last. Because people just assumed, well, you know, you got big tits, so you must be straight. The assumptions that people will make. Oh, anyway, okay. So again, read that again. Are lesbians especially vulnerable to crazy relationships? Again, and two, I say that because we have a lot of women, there are a lot of women who are covert narcissists. Like that, they own that. It's mostly females who are covert narcissists. And, you know, you get into a relationship with another woman thinking that she's going to be nurturing, thinking that she's going to have the same, you know, views, whatever, you know, that she's going to be something. I remember somebody asking me, well, are you dating women? Of course, I just can't be a lesbian naturally. Are you are you dating women because of the abandonment issues with your mother? And I did step back and had to think about that. I was not dating women because of that, but the women that I was attracted to, that was the reason why I was attracted to the women that I was attracted to. That savior complex, that healer complex. You know, I watched my stepmother be brutally beaten by my narcissistic sociopathic father. I heard stories of other women that he had brutalized, like ripping the trigger warning, ripping the hair off of one woman's head that it pulled up scalp, pulled up skin, trying to cause her to have a miscarriage. I mean, like my father should not be alive, but he's smiling. Everybody talks to him. But I'm the one that's the black sheep. And I have not raped anybody. I have not beaten anybody. I have not tried to shoot anybody with a damn shotgun. You know, I've not stolen money. I've not cheated. Can't say I haven't stolen money, but you know, I have. But I mean, I'm not perfect. And that's the thing. The people used to say, "Oh, you think you're Jesus or something like that." I don't think that I'm Jesus. I'm just aware, and I'm honest with myself as much as I possibly can be.